Welcome to Skeptical Scott and Friends, a place where heathens want reasons. Please join us as we drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible. Greetings, human. It's our first interview of Season 3 with AJ Ruley. Who is AJ? Well, some might say she's an endless war. She's a hero for the lost cause. Like a hurricane in the heart of the devastation. She's a natural disaster. Okay, she ain't a Green Day song, but she is a science enthusiast, host of the YouTube show Ways to Human. You will also hear her as a guest on other shows as well in the secular community. AJ, welcome to Skeptical Scott and Friends.
Thank you for having me, Scott. I guess I'm the last of the American Girls. That was the end of a Green Day song, by the way.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be an American idiot, so I got you. Hey, I've actually enjoyed Green Day for a long time, so they've been around. How are you arriving today? How are you feeling?
Pretty good. Had a good productive day, working on editing for my channel and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. And I'm looking at your background right now, so the people who are listening in, I can see like a microscope back there. I see the heart with the treble clef and the music. Is that your tattoo? You have a tattoo or something like that, don't you?
That is not, but I actually do want that one because I painted it. I painted that.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
It wasn't my design, but I kind of changed it up a little bit. I was like, that would kind of look cool as that tattoo.
I think it looks really cool. Well, you heard me say secular community. Tell us about what that means to you, because I know on Season 3, we are leaning into that on Skeptical Scott and Friends. When you hear secular community, what's that mean right now for you?
When I first came into the community, I was probably the typical angry atheist, you know?
Yeah, I think I might sometimes still be there.
It comes out every now and then. As time progressed and I got to know different people in the community, well, one of them was, Seth Andrews and Steve Kikidis, who wrote the book Humanism from the Heart. And I read that book.
That's a good book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's such a good book. And I was like, wow, like I really want to embrace this humanism thing, right? More so than the atheism part. Because then everybody that's in the community is technically an atheist, right? An unbeliever. Mm-hmm. But not everybody that's in the community is a humanist. And so, secular humanist is more like, that's more of the label that I take now, rather than just angry atheist.
I know Steve's a frequent listener to this show, so I know, Steve, you're appreciating that right now. You are helping us with Ways to Human. That's what you're doing, Steve. And with AJ, Ways to Human, what's that about? What's that show?
Well, I was trying to pick a name, right? Because I was like, hey, how can I help other people the way that others, like Steve or even Forrest Alki helped me a lot to deconstruct my belief or my bad ideas, I guess. And I was like, what would be a good name for a channel to help people to find how to human? And the first draft of the name was How to Human. Mm-hmm. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, that kind of sounds kind of bossy,
This
like
is how you do it.
Yeah, like you only have one way. And I was like, that's not how it works, right? Like everybody has, even for myself, I find that different methods may work for different situations. And so I was like, okay, well, there's like different ways to human. And I was like, oh, there you go, Ways to Human.
Well, and I just renamed my show. It was funny you say that for 2 seasons. And the subtitle was Skeptical Scott and Friends. I still like that saying, funny you say that, because I think people say that when they find something in common. They're like, oh, funny you say that, right? But I'm really leaning into that secular community part. So it's Skeptical Scott and Friends. And it's not cynical Scott and Friends, right? I'm trying not to be just that angry atheist as well. So that's how I first met you. I first met you. You were doing a show to help people in our community. I believe it was a Halloween theme because people were dressed up, and oh my gosh, yeah, I had so much fun, AJ. It was so cool. Just being there with a group, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, man, the time went by so fast during that show. I hosted for like
How
5
many
hours.
I was going to say, it was like 5 hours. It was amazing.
I know, but I was like, I really wanted to spend more time with each person, and it was just everybody kept coming and going and coming and going, and I had to keep the track of the schedule and who was next and all of that stuff. But it was so much fun, and we did raise, I think it was about $500 for each one of the 3 members of the community that we were trying to help. And gosh, I wish I could remember how many hosts came through.
What I try to picture is the technology side of that, as far as like being able to manage all of that. I want to say Helen was in the waiting room. Is that right?
Yeah. No, I was going to mention that there were a bunch of people doing all the background stuff. I was mostly keeping up with the time and private chatting. Hey, send me this person. Send me the next one. This is who's coming next. You gotta drop this person out or keep this one and stuff like that. There were a couple mistakes here and there, but it wasn't anything noticeable or anything that was like bad.
You knew more than we did in that case. And it's a lot harder to do that than it is to pass a bowl around the pews. You know what I mean? So, way to go, AJ. Hey, I'd like to know, what would you consider your relationship to be to religion in the first, I usually say 18 years of life, but I think I'm going to say 15 years of life for a reason. So go ahead.
The reason you're saying that is because I moved to the U.S. when I was 15.
Yes.
The first 15 years of my life, I will say the most exposure that I had to religion was we lived in very, very rural Argentina, and we didn't have a church in the area that we lived in. And so there was this, I guess, Catholic church maybe that will bring a bus with books. And obviously they brought, the Bible, stuff like that. So I wasn't really interested in that. So I would just go in there in the bus and like grab all sort of other books, never the Bible. But then my younger sister wanted to get baptized, and I'm sure we did some kind of studying. I was deaf, and like I still didn't have my hearing aid at the time. So anything people told me probably went into one ear, not the other, or never even went into one ear.
Not even the one ear, yeah. But it was more like nodding along and just kind of going through the motions, right?
That part, yeah, exactly.
And hey, it's cool to get on a bus when you're in the rural Argentina. When you say rural, you really mean rural, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, we had a middle school. It was like an mixed elementary and middle school. It didn't even have a high school. You had to drive like an hour away to go to high school. There was a store that was like a little market run by a family. There was like a deli sort of place that had a bar, so we hardly ever went in there. I only went to like get a sandwich every now and then. That was it. Everything else was like farms and country. We would ride our horses to school, walk to school. Literally ride our horses to school. I'm not kidding.
This is quite personal, so just share what you want to. But would you, on a 1 to 10, when you think of the first 15 years of your life, I mean, was it a happy place to be? Were you satisfied with it? And then what made you, like, what caused your family, I guess, to leave?
Oh, yeah, no, it was a happy, I'm sure we had, our downtimes and stuff. We were very poor. We didn't have I think we had a TV in some of the places that we lived. I don't even remember if it was color TV because we hardly watched it.
Yeah.
We had so much fun outside. We had we would go to our friends' houses and get into all sorts of trouble that young kids got into. It wasn't anything bad. Mm-hmm. Throwing rocks at things maybe.
But yeah,
or
freedom. you figure things out, right? And don't always need a parent to be walking you around or something, right?
Right. And it was such an isolated area that all of the families knew each other and watched out for all of the other kids, like other people's kids.
So age 15, how do you find out, hey, we're going somewhere else?
So the thing was in Argentina at the time, this was 2001. Mm-hmm. And so the economy and the government was in turmoil. And I mean, I've looked back on the history a little bit as an adult, kind of to see what was going on. But at the time, I was 15. I wasn't really into politics much. And so what I did know was that we had 4 presidents in 2 weeks.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so everybody was freaking out, what was going to happen. And so my stepdad had come many years before from Switzerland, and remarried to my mom. So we were living with him at the time, and he had a nicer house than the average person in the neighborhood. Even though we had grown up very, very poor at that time, when they got together, we were doing a little bit better. But so what he did was he sold everything in the house. Like they had an auction, and he sold everything in the house. And we were left with, like, we didn't even have a stove or a refrigerator
totally
the next
cleaned
morning.
out. Yeah.
Like, right. Everything sold out. And there was like a really small, like those old TVs, mattresses on the floor, our clothes, a couple small personal belongings like toys and stuff, music, CDs, I guess. And we wake up and my mom's freaking out. She's like, come to the kitchen. So we are going in the kitchen. And she turns on the TV. 9/11 had just happened.
Yeah.
We were like, our hearts just dropped. We didn't know what to do. So what they did was they kind of like in the movies, they put out the money that they had just collected from the auction, which was like, I think, $10,000 or something like that. Put it in a can, dug a hole in the backyard, and buried it there, because we were like, the government here is terrible. There's crime everywhere. People know we just sold everything. They're gonna come and try to take this money from us. And so, anyways, we were able to still get our plane tickets and fly to the U.S. It took about a month before we could do that.
Yeah, there were no flights for a while. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then, like, a little bit after we arrived, the U.S. removed what was called a visa waiver for Argentina, which was one of the only countries that still had that, which meant you did not need a visa to come to the U.S.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we got here.
Now, you're joining us from Texas today, correct?
That's right.
Is that where you went 20-something years ago?
Yeah. Well, yeah, first we arrived to Miami and then rode a bus to Houston, and we've been here since.
Okay. We heard about your religious upbringing, which in quotes, right? But now you're engaging now in a different kind of religious upbringing, I take it, right? So what did I know Texas a little bit. I've been there several times, and I live in West Michigan now. So I both areas are pretty conservative. What was it like to run into that type of, I guess, churchianity or Christianity, however you want to put it? What was it like?
Oh, yeah, it was like being thrown into the deep end, because we didn't just move here. We had one person that we knew here. The reason we came to Houston was because my dad had, I think it was his brother, had a friend, and his brother was very religious, and his brother's friend had a church here, I think it was. And so we moved into their home, and, we kind of had to embrace their religious experience and go to church with them and stuff like that. So it was like right away from the get-go, from the first day, we were like deeply put into all of this religious stuff that we hadn't been involved in before. No, I don't think they were more. I think they were evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's been definitely over 15 years. I'm not going to tell my age, but
Yeah, well, and certainly more people congregating together than you were used to.
Oh, yeah,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long would you say that period lasted, and how serious were you about it?
My mom was an atheist already.
Okay.
And so we were sort of raised without faith, non-religious. And so even though we had moved here and into this family who were religious into the home, we still kept our lack of belief. And my mom was very open about talking to us about that. Even though when we were in these people's homes, it wasn't something that we could very openly discuss. But I didn't become religious at that time. It happened a little bit later. So from that point, from when I was 15 up to when I was like 18,
mm-hmm.
I was non-religious, but like kind of absorbing everything around me, because religion is so deeply embedded in all parts of society, right? Like, in TV and in school.
Yeah, really a part of the culture, and you're taking in a brand new culture, and that's a big slice of it.
Right, exactly. And it was like everything was part of that. And even things like TV shows about ghosts and stuff like that, right? Which was actually something that really interested me. And when I met my first serious boyfriend, who's now my husband, that was something that interested him a lot. He wasn't deeply religious, but his family was. And so he did believe in ghosts, and we would like have these marathons of watching ghost hunters, and I loved it. And I was like really into that. So for me, it was really easy to get into religion. I think because of that, partly because it was like, okay, if a ghost exists, that means that you have to have a soul. And if you have a soul, then who gave you your soul? You know, it's that sort of thing.
So yeah, 15 to 18, there's so many changes that happen in that short 3-year span, you know what I mean, in people's lives. But, you know, I guess I know only just a little bit about your background. So I know there was a point where you got pretty serious about it. And I think it's funny that either it's when we're vulnerable that we look for church, or that the church knows vulnerable people are the ones to go after. So however you want to take it, but would you say that that's spurred you on to take it more seriously because you hit a vulnerable point in your life?
Right, exactly. That was exactly it. You know, when I first met my husband, we were kind of party people.
Did you say party people?
Lie. Party people.
Yeah. All right.
You know, like we were both young and
sinning. Is that what you meant? You meant you were sinning. Party people. I'm just kidding.
Pretty much. You could say that.
We have to save this couple.
Right. Well, yeah, no, we probably did have that, you know, sort of people thinking that about us.
I don't know. I'm just playing.
When I was in my early 20s, I think 23, I got pregnant. And that was our first child. And we were wanting to have a child, right? At that time, you know, we'd gotten married already and everything, and we wanted to start a family. And so I get pregnant, but I have a lot of health issues myself. And it's one of those things that you're like, oh, you know, well, it's just me. Like, my kid's everything's going to be fine. But unfortunately, we discovered that the anatomy scan that the baby was potentially going to have what could be a fatal condition that's not compatible with life, in addition to a heart defect. The heart defect can be more manageable than the other condition, which is called trisomy 13. And so often babies don't really live even to true birth.
When did you know that?
Yeah, I was 22 weeks along.
Wow.
Along.
Yeah, so that had to be hard news to hear.
Right. Yeah, it was really hard. And so we had a few options. One of them was like we could do an amniocentesis, which is like where they stick the needle in the belly and try to get stuff that from your baby to test whether they have that condition or not. But that was a high risk of losing the pregnancy if you do that, or there can be some type of harm to the baby. And so that's when our family, my husband's family, started to offer prayers and like, hey, come to church with us and stuff like that. My mom had left to Switzerland a couple of years before that. And so even though I did speak to her regularly, her not being here, it was like she had a little bit less influence in my decisions, maybe.
Sure. No, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And like the family that was here, it was the ones that I was listening to more every day. And we were living with my mother-in-law and my father-in-law just my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had passed away at that time. And so she did go to church every Sunday. And so she started, hey, why don't you come with us? And so we started going, and that's when we started getting into that. And it was the Assembly of God, which is Pentecostal church.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with the different slices, that's a tasty slice, isn't it? Assembly of God. How would you describe that to somebody who's not familiar with it?
It's kind of like one of the ones that are a little bit more fundamentalist, and they have the speaking in tongues and the Holy Trinity and faith healing.
So what you're saying is you didn't just join a church. You jumped in the deep end, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That's pretty animated from what I've seen in terms of how serious people take it, but also you just don't sit in the pew. Is that fair to say, or?
Well, I personally didn't ever get to the point of speaking in tongues, and I think it probably had a lot to do with my hearing, because I was like sometimes having a hard time with taking everything in, and I don't know, maybe I was having a little bit of a slower learning curve. But I was reading the Bible and learning all about, sort of the faith and stuff like that, and we will go to the sermons and everything. But they did try the faith healing a couple of times where you go up on stage and everybody's surrounding you and putting their hand over you and like trying to heal the baby and everything. And, it didn't work, obviously.
Right. And, in case you were wondering what they were saying when they were speaking in tongues, you're not missing much. I'll just say that. Okay.
Well, from what I've learned.
Because I don't know what they're saying either. Let's go back to the story, which is really, okay, I'm in this situation where I have this high-risk pregnancy. I'm being prayed over. What happens next? Like, what happens to your baby?
Yeah, so that's when I first started, getting more into the religion. Then months went by, and I would go to church and everything. And by the time the baby was born, well, the doctors were like, well, scans aren't always accurate. And so the heart condition was there, but the trisomy 13 was not. And so they were like, just so happened that the baby had, at every scan, the baby had the hands, the fingers, the thumb under the other fingers. And so when they see that, it can mean that they have this condition and that they cannot open their hand. But it just so happened that the baby, I guess, was making fists. Yeah. But it happened during several of the scans, and that's why they made the assumption that it was sort of like a permanent thing. This baby was just like doing that.
So that was good news.
Yeah, partly. Yeah. And we still had to deal with the heart condition. Yeah.
Yep. And did the surgeries for the heart happen pretty quickly, or was it over time?
Yeah. So the first one was a hard one because we went home from the hospital pretty soon after birth because determined that the baby was doing pretty well for the condition that they had. And so we get home, and during the first few weeks, it was really hard because when a baby would cry, he would, sort of turn really purple and lips will turn blue. So we were very concerned. And at one point at 11 weeks, I was by myself at the house and, get up in the morning and the baby was crying really, really hard. And all of a sudden just stopped. And I was like, what's going on? And like his face just turned blue. And I was like, okay, stop breathing. So I did a couple, I can't even remember right now what it was, maybe like slap or something. I don't know exactly what I did, but like baby came back too. And so I called my husband right away and he flies home and we drive to the hospital. And so that was when they were like, yeah, your baby was having, not just stop breathing, but was also having seizures because of the lack of oxygen. And so they hospitalized him and had surgery about a week later. And we were in the hospital for a little bit after that. So that was the first surgery, like barely even a month old. Like 2 months old. That was really hard. And we still had, people come over and pray and all the stuff. You want me to keep going to the second surgery?
Well, here's what I'll say, AJ. I mean, just so, especially listeners who don't know you, there's a happy ending here. How old's your baby today?
My baby. Yeah, my baby is going to be 15 this year.
So glad to hear that. And so whether it's your baby's health journey, you once said to me that your health has kind of wrapped into this whole, your religious journey, I guess. So how do you feel like those two work together, or did they work together, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think it was sort of, like I said, this faith healing hope that I had, that there was somebody, like a paternal figure that was going to take care of everything, made me get into the religion and hope for both my child and myself to get better. Because I hadn't had any luck with my own hope. It just continued to add and add and add different things. And I don't know, for those that may not know, I'm deaf, and I've also been blind, but I have a double corneal transplant, which restored my sight.
Wow. I knew that you had vision, but I didn't know that much detail that it was from a transplant. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 2 different people's eyes, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, because they happen about a year and a half apart.
Thanks, science, huh?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, but on top of that, I have type 1 diabetes and adrenal insufficiency. So my body can't survive on its own. I have to take things every day that keep me alive. But so this was this sort of disconnect that I had. And it included my kid. When my kid was in 2020, about 9 years old, he has heart checks every single year. Sometimes, depending on how close to the surgery, it's every 6 months. Sometimes it's every 3 months. But so by 2020, we were having them closer and closer because he was in heart failure. And so we had to watch it really closely for the perfect time to do the next surgery. Unfortunately, their heart is really complex, and they tried to do a CAT procedure, which is kind of like put a little tube up to the heart from the leg, which is a minor surgery that, you're in the hospital overnight and that's it. They tried that, but their heart valve was a size that was too big to put what valve they could fit through the CAT. So they had to do open heart surgery. So they do the open heart surgery, and that's when I started thinking it's interesting, because I got into religion because of my kid, and I kind of got out of religion because of my kid. Because I was like, okay, this is the second heart surgery. Did the prayers not work the first time or what? No, but really, I was just sitting there next to their hospital bed, like a day or two after surgery, and he couldn't even talk because the chest tubes were causing so much pain that just the act of speaking was so painful. So I would just sit there and hold his hand, sit by the bed. I didn't even want to talk myself, because I was like, okay, then if I talk, then I'm gonna forcing him to talk or respond or whatever. So I just sat there quietly and holding his hand, and that's when I was like, well, what do I do now? Do I talk to God?
It's a helpless feeling, right? Helpless.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, helpless. Yeah. But also well, it's just us. It's not really what is this God doing here? What am I going to exactly pray for? The surgery already happened. The doctors did their job. The nurses are taking care of him. I'm sitting here not able to do anything. What else is there for this God to do? Well, take away the pain? How is he going to take away the pain if he hasn't already? Why didn't he take the condition away in the first place?
Can I connect what you're saying to something you posted? I can't remember when. It was a couple days ago, I think. But you pretty much said, well, God created you perfect in his image, right? Oh, yeah. So what does that say? I think you had said, what does that say about people like me?
Oh, yeah, because I posted all of the main conditions that I have on that one. And I was like, what does that really say? Because I have been told a couple of times, oh, no, you're perfect. Well, this conversation began because of trans people and someone telling me, well, trans people shouldn't modify their bodies. And I'm like, well, what does that say about someone that has eye surgery?
Exactly. You modified your corneas. Is that okay?
And it was my choice. There's people who live lives, who live very full lives who are blind. I could have chosen to stay blind. However, God decided that I was perfect. And what God, no, that's different. I mean, no, that's not different. It's exactly the same. So that's where I question people like that. If you're thinking that somebody creates trans people perfect and they shouldn't change their bodies, then you're saying I shouldn't have changed my body, that I shouldn't even take insulin, right?
That's a great point, AJ. And I love and even the insulin part, because that affects a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And if truly we're, hey, this is how I was made, then if prayer worked, why are we taking ibuprofen?
Yeah, exactly. And you are changing your chemistry, your body chemistry, and therefore, in a way, your biology.
But hey, great segue there, AJ, because I know today you love science.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And so when, I described you in the introduction as a science enthusiast, tell me a little bit about what that means to you today and what you're doing.
Well, first of all, again, my kid is always, we always do things for our children, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started learning a lot about the brain, and that's why I'm so passionate about talking about brains. When my kid was diagnosed with OCD, which is also a condition that is related to the lack of oxygen from the heart. So this got me into that aspect of science. But my mom is the one that originally got me into all of the sciences, biology and anthropology and a little bit of chemistry, although I'm not good at it. But it's because growing up, we had walls of books, and a lot of them were science books. So that's where my passion mainly comes from. Then in 2017, during the first presidency of our current president, we noticed that a lot of people noticed the attacks on science. And so that's when the March for Science was created. Mm-hmm. And I was already very, very passionate about science because of the advancements that have helped me do better with my health, like an insulin pump, cornea transplant, the coconut implant, all of these things that helped me have a better life. And so since I was very passionate about science, I noticed that there wasn't a Houston chapter for the March for Science. And so I started it. And that's where I became labeled science enthusiast.
Hell yeah. I love that. I have, in my family, I have people who are related to the sciences. I'll just say that. There is an attack on expertise of any kind, really. It's asinine.
It is.
The lack of trust on experts and expertise. Why would you not go to the expert? People would much rather go with the rhetoric than research.
Yeah, it's a shame. And that's what got me interested in this. And I was just, I got to meet so many really amazing scientists during the preparation for the march and everything. We had from people from NASA and the Texas Medical Center, which is like the biggest medical center in the world. So we had a lot of speakers from there.
Excellent.
So I have a pain condition called CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, also called the suicide disease, because it's so painful. People often take their lives over it. And so it was misdiagnosed for about 10 years for me. And I finally found a doctor that was like, this is what it is. And he started treating it, and it worked. So, he'd been my doctor for many years. And by the time that the march happened, I was in a lot of pain. And he tells me, hey, I am going to make sure that you walk that march. And he's like, and I'm going to walk it with you. And so
wow.
he helped me with, we will do like nerve blocks and medications like ketamine and opiates and muscle relaxers. It was like a whole cocktail of really strong medications. And so he's like, I'm going to walk with you. And he walked with me.
And this work has continued.
There has been smaller ones. There hasn't been like a national one since then. But a lot of the chapters remained non-profits. They became non-profits after, which we also did for a couple of years until about 2020, when everything, shut down and we...
And there was a whole different science focus all of a sudden.
Yeah, but we used to host blood drives, or we will do Amazon drives where people could pick things from our Amazon list and they will ship it to us, and then we will gather everything and take it to a central place and have school-age kids come pick up. It was like books and science kits mostly, and we will do that type of stuff. Then we will gather at, sometimes we will do like little science gatherings, like at I don't know, like a bar or something like that, where people could come, but outside, right? So we could bring the kids and stuff.
Yeah, exposure to science, exposure to
Right.
just like when you were a kid, you got that big library of books that were science books that got you initially interested.
Right. And we did it for the adults too. So what we will do is we will have them go to like a beer garden and have a specific topic for that day. And we will bring in a scientist that will give their presentation. And then afterwards, people could ask them questions or just mingle among each other and have a drink.
I would imagine the questions got a little looser as the presentations went on at a beer garden.
We think it's real important to question what you know. So before you leave the podcast, it's the skeptic of the show.
This quote I'm going to read to you, AJ, and I have a feeling you just might know who it comes from. Here it is. I am more interested in the quality of my life than the quantity of my days. Does that sound familiar to you, or does that sound like somebody you know?
I love that, yeah. Dave Warnock.
Dave Warnock, yes. He's definitely one of those people that helped me find some secular community. I want to know who Dave is for you.
He is an inspiration. You know, as I mentioned, like I have a lot of health issues, and so looking at someone, everybody's always, how are you so positive? And I wasn't always this positive. I struggled a lot with severe anxiety and panic attacks stemming directly from my fear of dying, or, you know, of what the next day could bring as far as pain or more health issues added, you know, surgeries, like extremely painful surgeries that I've had. And so they've definitely helped me understand what you just said, right? It doesn't matter like how many days you have. It's just more about the quality of those days that you do have right now.
Dave is somebody who can speak to that because of his condition. And so listeners, you're going to hear Dave's voice later this season from an original interview from a few years ago, only because it was really a part of my questimony is what I call it. AJ, can you introduce to our audience, the people who don't know Dave, why is he especially qualified to give advice like that?
I'm not exactly sure how long he's had this. I know it's been many years, but he has ALS, which is unfortunately a very progressive condition that takes away your ability to perform anything with your body. It sort of weakens your muscles, and it does the same to your internal organs as well. It's a terrifying disease, and I cannot imagine the struggle that he may have had to go through to get to the point where he is still so positive.
Right. Mentally and physically, right? I mean, I think the average lifespan when somebody, once they're diagnosed, the average is 3 to 5 years. For some people, it's less than a year. It's that fast. You got to meet him.
Yeah, I did. Actually, he had a video recently with that he filmed during the time of NanoCon last July. And with Seth Andrews, he mentioned that he's definitely past the time that he was given. So there's really no way to know how much longer he might have, which is something that I sympathize with. And I know it's not to the same level, but with having type 1 diabetes and adrenal insufficiency, if I miss a dose of my medication, it can be really terrifying. I have been in adrenal crisis, which is like where my doctor was like, you are not going to make it to the morning. Like, right. We got to you just in time. I got to meet Dave at NanoCon this past July, and he gave his speech, and I was just in tears. There was a point where I was like, should I walk out? Because I was just crying, and I was like, no, that's not what you do, that's not respectful. You sit your ass down and you listen to this man. And I'm really glad that I did, because it was really emotional, but it was like so heartfelt and so inspiring. And again, it keeps you positive. Yeah.
Listeners, if you're not familiar with NanoCon, that is a conference that is held in Nashville. And, you know, Dave has not been doing a lot of events lately for a lot of reasons, but he did do that one because for him, that's local. He lives near Nashville. Actually, not near Nashville. He lives in Nashville.
Yeah, he does.
But AJ, I loved hearing that, you know, I can see the connection between you and him as far as what you're dealing with. For him, it's a matter of years, but for you, it's a matter of, I don't know how many, conditions you've been, like procedures, surgeries, both you and your child, just the unknown. It's inspiring to see somebody say, well, whatever days I have, I'm going to embrace this one wild life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the inspiring part for me from Dave. I did track him down after his speech. He was having lunch outside with his partner and a couple of other people. And I was just like, this is the only chance I'm probably going to get. And so I got to shake his hand and give him a hug, and he was amazing. And yeah, so it was a really good experience and someone that I really, really look up to. Well,
hey, Dave, I'm going to send this to you. Just know there's 2 people here among many, many people that you've inspired. And I guess we'll just end that section with a saying, carpe the fucking diem.
Exactly. Carpe the fucking diem.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dave Warnock. Well, I'll always remember that. Well, hey, as we wrap things up, AJ, is there anything else you want our listeners to know?
No, this has been really good conversation. I really enjoyed it and appreciate you having me and being able to share all of this with you and your listeners.
Thank you, for inviting me into your community. And I certainly loved being on your show. Hey, where can people find you?
My channel is called Waste to Human, and it's on YouTube. I'm mostly on YouTube. I do have a Facebook page, but it's like, you know, not much about that.
It's where boomers like me hang out. So,
yeah,
that's right. Hey, thanks for joining us today. And I can't wait to see you face to face someday. It'll happen. Dang it. Okay.
For sure. Yeah, of course it will.
All right. Thank you so much. And hey, listeners, check our show notes. Have a great, great day. Thanks for listening to Skeptical Scott and Friends. Find all of our episodes and social media channels at skepticalscott.com. You can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/skepticalscott. Thank you for the virtual high five. Drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, believe in as many true things as possible. See you at least every first and third Friday. May skeptical thoughts be with you. Cheers.